Welcome everybody back to the Carolina Outdoors. We're the outdoor guys from Jesse Brown's, coming to you many different ways, one of which is via the airwaves of WBT radio up and down the eastern seaboard. Some other ways that you can tune in and listen to us is by subscribing to the podcast. Just type in Carolina Outdoors and up will pop. We ask that you'll review us. It helps other people find us, and we think it's good for us as well. You can go to jessebrowns.com as well. Those are just some of the... Oh, Wes, I forgot. We also have a YouTube channel. Go to Jesse Brown's Outdoors on YouTube, because during the pandemic, the COVID-19 situation, maybe we'll call it, we are also linking this over to YouTube as we broadcast from Studio Jesse Brown's. I'm Bill Bartee. And sitting beside me, Wes Lawson. Wes, welcome.
Hey, Bill. It's good to see you. Now, earlier we were talking about camping and ghost stories.
Oh, yeah. I told you my Molly Hugger story that we told around the campfire right before all my children disappeared.
They disappeared because ghost stories are terrifying. You know, I gave a little tease that some of the oldest ghost stories date back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest recorded story in humankind. Now, that's not a scary ghost story in there. I won't go into all the details because y'all don't have the time or the inclination, but the main character, Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, sounds a lot like Iraq, doesn't it? Because it's the same basic place, loses a friend, and he has a vision speaking to him. And it's not scary. It's kind of a nice transcendental moment, but it's the first mention of a ghost in writing. But the most common ghost story that we know today is based on a story from about the year 50 of the Common Era by Pliny the Younger, or Pliny, depending on how you pronounce it, about a haunted house that scares people away, and eventually the ghosts and the scary noises help the homeowner find the buried remains of a murdered victim. And in doing that, he brings him justice, and the house is no longer haunted. So many, countless stories in almost 2,000 years are based on that one ghost story. Can you believe that?
That sounds like a good guy ghost story.
It's pretty good, but you know, ghost stories have all these great parables and meanings to them. But you know what? It's also scary. It's not just ghost stories. You go camping, people, especially new to the outdoors, are terrified by bugs.
So true. Well, we can get into that too, but before we do, I need to remind everybody that it's spring break. Yep. So we do encourage you, for many people, it's a great time to get out for some backyard camping and telling. It doesn't have to be scary ghost stories, but just tales, and you don't have to get it exactly right, but it's good fodder for the experience of being at the campsite, wherever that may be. But Wes, you mentioned bugs being scary. I have to bring this up, and I'm going to ask you if you know what this is, but or why this is. But in my house, now we've had ants before.
Sure. Any uncles?
And a few uncles, but a lot of ants. We've had ladybugs.
Sure.
This infestation of ladybugs come in during the spring as it warms up outside, but it's still cool. But this year, 2020, the stink bug has invaded. Do you have any reason or solution? And I've studied, so don't feel trapped by that question, but have you had the same problem?
Yeah, you know, stink bugs they're fascinating to walk around, you know, because they're very mechanical. Those little armored creatures, they're kind of like the armadillos of the bug world. But if one of those flies, they are remarkably nimble, and they are loud. I mean, it sounds like a helicopter landing in the house. But you know, we've had them around for a couple of years now. I don't recall them from my youth at all, but they get that name because if they get scared, or sometimes if you crush them, they do release a defensive spray, and it can be kind of a acrid smell.
Yeah, it stinks. And I'm going to tell you what I learned about it. And it's also called, for those of you listening, the shield bug. And it's because of the shape of its back wings or its protected helmet-looking shield shape on the backside. So that is what we would call down here a stink bug.
Yep.
Or to be more exact, without going Latin on you, the brown marmorated stink bug. Now, it's native to Asia.
Yep.
It does not belong in North or South or Central America at all. It comes from China, Japan, the Korean Peninsula. All of that is where this thing starts from or comes from. And I found this, that in the 90s, it was accidentally introduced to North America. So from an accidental introduction to from Asia, it is now pervasive, invasive and pervasive to us here, in that I am probably so I'm not smushing them or killing them like you might a horsefly or a mosquito or even a cockroach because of what you said. They stink.
Yeah.
Their abdomen has whatever in it. I learned this in show prep here for the Carolina Outdoors program. Whatever the toxin is that has this bad smell to it. So don't squish them, especially if they're in your house. They are coming into your house because it's cozy and warmer than it is outdoors in this transitional time from being cold to now warming up a little bit. It's making them move. I found out how horrible they are for crops.
Well, think about this. If you or a loved one likes hazelnut spreads such as Nutella, the hazelnut crops, most of those globally come from, let's go back to Gilgamesh, they come from Asia Minor, Turkey. And these little guys devastate those crops, so they are predicting a hazelnut shortfall for 2020. So if you're a Nutella eater, 2020 is getting worse and worse for you. So yeah, these guys, they will just decimate a field crop.
Well, I'm going to give you a few more to that. They feed on hundreds of species of plants, and so these were introduced in the late 90s. That's why we've gone through the Japanese beetles, whatever those things are called, and all those that we're eating. That was in the 70s, I think, the Japanese beetles came in. But by 2010, so 10 years ago, they were in several of the orchards up and down the eastern seaboard. In the mid-Atlantic U.S. alone, $37 million in apple crops were lost, and growers lost more than 90% of their crops.
Wow.
That's just in the mid-Atlantic. So the stink bug, they're established now here in North America and also Europe now as well, and they're becoming established next in South America. So that is scary. You are right.
That's quite the bug.
Anyway, just one of many, of course, besides eating the crops. At least they don't sting, they just stink.
Yep.
Speaking of stinging, in last week's show, one of the segments anyway, we talked a little bit about being out in the yard more and more, working in the yard and being exposed to copperheads, snakes, that sort of thing. A reminder, as well as now that you're out in the yard working, so many people are at home, whether they're working at home or now doing yard work more at home. Poison ivy is something else, a vine out there that of course has this oil on it that gets in our skin. It acts as an irritant. For some of us it is worse than others. Don Yeager, normally here, totally eats him up. Wes Lawson, it also, I know, eats you up. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. My wife as well. If you're going to be out there working in your yard, landscaping, taking the time to do all of that, you're listening to us many early on a Saturday morning via the airwaves of WBT. Some things that you can do before you get outdoors is to do something like wear a long sleeve shirt. Of course, at Jesse Brown's, we talk oftentimes about longer pants, longer shorts to protect us from the sun. but it's also noted that it can also protect us from the oils, the poison ivy, poison oak oils that get on our skin, irritate us, and in many allergic situations can be prolonged. We've talked oftentimes too about some of the solutions, whether it be Tecnu, putting that on there to help alleviate some of the scratching, some of the stinging, some of the irritation that comes from being exposed to poison ivy. But remember, of course, wear your gloves, but also wear those long sleeve shirts because it will help protect you. If you do get into it, Tecnu, but also go wash off as quickly as possible to help alleviate the itching, the scratching, the irritation. Hey, we're the Outdoor Guys from Jesse Brown's. You're listening to the Carolina Outdoors. We're going to be back with more after these messages.